Hey guys, before we get started with the episode, I just have two announcements to make. One, I have the Jibs Journal is out now. I send a weekly journal through email every single week that covers episode highlights, tips and tricks that the entrepreneurs in the show have gone over, and just other cool things that are happening. If you're interested in being subscribed to that journal, the link is in the description. The second announcement is I've released a course. So the course is how to crowdfund for your passion project, your side hustle. I crowdfunded over $65,000 in less than 90 days through my organization called Research Detroit. And the class is going to cover, the nitty-gritty details on how I did that, how I delegated the tasks with my team, the templates, the samples. It goes into full detail on how to run an effective crowdfunding campaign. So if you're interested in taking that course, the link is in the description as well.
It's just about getting up and doing it and finding the time, finding the people and making it happen.
You take control and you say, okay, this needs to be done, and you do it.
And you're never ready to start a business. You either do it or you don't.
Welcome to the Jibs Podcast, showcasing Detroit's movers and shakers, bringing you stories that reveal the gusto and grit that's long defined the city and its people. Together, we'll uncover the history and direction of the Motor City, one voice at a time. This is the Jibs Podcast with Jibran Ahmed.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the latest episode of the Jibs Podcast. I'm here with Anjali Purohit from Studio Variously. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Jibran, for calling me over.
Absolutely. Let's get started. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
I'm born and raised in India, and I moved to Detroit 10 years ago. And I started Studio Variously in 2016. And my background is basically in design and fashion. And I have worked as a designer in different categories of production, design, product development, sourcing for several brands like Pottery Barn, J. Crew, Anthropology, some of the brands in Europe as well and in India as well. So predominantly I have been involved in the core design segment for several fashion and design labels. And through all my past experiences, I was always involved with artisanal projects as well. And I always wanted to, go back to a particular niche category of techniques and materials which always interested me, mainly products that are handcrafted and that are artisanal driven, not made by machines. And also I think I was facing a lot of problems of wastage of resources, overpriced products, use of toxic materials and dyes and things like that. So through several projects and production work that I did before, I would come across these problems time and again, and that was always on my mind to how do I tackle it or how do I avoid it, being in this domain, and probably try and do something that is more sustainable in nature, because fashion, as you know, is the second most pollution causing industry in the world globally. So that was something that was always on my mind, and as I kind of gained more experience in the industry, I thought of branching out and focusing on this aspect of sustainability in fashion, and started Studio Variously.
So what made you want to start the company? How do you go from being aware of these problems to actually starting your own company? The thing is that I kind of started focusing on, what materials, what techniques, what product categories I would want to focus on. Because I had worked on several categories, right from hard goods and soft goods and apparels. So it was really a big category of products and market that I had worked on previously. So I started out from really concentrating on just the top 3 things that I really liked in terms of materials and products as well, and also with the artisans that I was most comfortable with. I thought that we could start off things even if on a slow pace, but we could kind of realize and get some end products over a long period of time. So I think I started by testing out swatches, concepts, because everything I do is custom made. So it kind of started from that area. So let's talk about your background a little bit. you talked about some of the issues that were in the industry, and you've been in the industry for a while.
Right.
So can you kind of touch on what you think are the top two biggest problems in the fashion industry and how that could be improved?
I think one is that it is heavily trend driven, because I myself used to design a lot of collections that are trend based, and if you see right now, like for bigger retailers, there are like 52 cycles of trends that they kind of micro trends, I would say, that they follow around the year, and I think it is really hard to keep up with something like that. And in the end, how much excess are we consuming versus what we need? So it's almost like, do we need so many trends? Do we need to just go blindly by, what's there in the big fashion magazines, that's kind of coming out? I mean, why don't we go a little bit more toned down approach, but still get access to good designs? So that is where I think one of the biggest problems with fashion industry, that we just are really trend centric. And secondly, also that the way the production process is pursued, one really doesn't care too much about how it is made, but how much is it priced for. So, going to a lot marked down products or really overpriced products. In the name of luxury, some of the products are really overpriced, and sometimes for a very good deal, something is really, really marked down low. But how much is the maker getting? Or how well is it made? Is it even worth that much that it's priced for? And what about the quality of life of the people who are making these products, and the place where it's getting made? Is it being done ethically? Are they getting living wages? Is it environmentally friendly? So I think all those things really impact, because the supply chain of fashion is so complex and so long.
Yeah.
So I think those two for me are my biggest priorities.
Yeah, and it seems like fast fashion, like H&M,
Yeah.
Zara, whatever,
Yeah.
really embody all those issues that you're talking about.
Yeah, because you're kind of like, from teenagers, or I would say preteens and above, everybody is almost a consumer, like firsthand. So how you're kind of marketing your brand, and, how many collections are getting shifted on the shop floor every few weeks. And I think that is one of the biggest problems which has made fashion industry the biggest pollution causing industry in the world.
Yeah. So you're working firsthand with a lot of these artisans and
Right.
makers. So do you have any stories, or what have you encountered when talking to these people about the lives that they have lived, either contributing to the fashion industry, and what's your experience with that?
So I think one thing is there that all these artisans that I work with, they are like third, fourth generation of, like, say, weavers and printers, and something that they have learned as kids. Almost like seeing their family do it, their neighbors, their community do it. So it comes on very organically to them. It is almost not something that they have learned through a training program, but more through their way of living. So it's a part of their culture, and it comes really naturally to them. So for them, they have certain, also set ideas that, only certain motifs are possible, or certain colors are possible, or they work well, because that's how they've seen culturally things being accepted. But on the other hand, there is also a need, I think, for innovating those techniques, because otherwise these techniques, these heritage techniques, are going to not live up to the market needs. And that's a problem that we are facing, that most of these techniques are like dying, they're going away and fading with time. And a lot of times we don't even know about them. There's just one or two families that are doing in that entire region. So I think the need for creating new ways of innovating their techniques so that they have a life, and we can have a more wider market outreach is important, and I think they do realize that as well.
So where are you currently sourcing your materials from?
So what I basically do is that all the yarns that we work with are mostly sourced from the same local region as the artisans, or the artisans have their own internal supply chain of materials, and that kind of works out well because they know exactly what they are very comfortable to work with. So some of the weavers that I work with are in India, and the other part of weavers that I work with are in Nepal. So predominantly right now I would say in India and Nepal are the two regions that I'm working more with.
Okay, I see. so moving a little bit away from the production, something I've been really fascinated with lately, and I think that's been in the news lately, is just cultural appropriation in fashion.
Yeah.
So can you talk about what, in your opinion, is maybe going too far or being okay? Because I think culture is appropriated everywhere, and it's just a part of the world, and I think that's a part of globalization, right?
Yeah.
But there also is a point of, I think, like mockery almost. So what is your opinion on that?
I think there's a very fine line of balance, and it's kind of like hard to say that this is black or white, because there's so many grays when, especially in this kind of a like this topic. But if, for example, if you are as a designer, if I'm taking inspiration from a certain segment of a culture, like say if it's some kind of prints, then it's always good to, I think, even associate your source of inspiration, where it comes from. And because you can be inspired by a million things around the world, like it could be some colors, some patterns, it could be so many things. It could be even food that inspires fashion. So it's always kind of interesting to at least have a good reference, a solid reference to where your inspiration is coming from, so that you can narrate your story better. And definitely, I think if you are doing things in a respectful manner, you're not kind of being derogatory or condescending to your reference, I think then that should be good. Like as per me, I mean, you should just at least know, like, okay, if I'm using this this particular pattern, and if it is not kind of, the way I'm using it, if it is not bothering somebody else, and I'm giving a good reference of my inspiration, then I think that should be kind of a good way, a good approach for it.
Right. So let's move away from that and talk about your journey particularly. So you started this company, how many years has it been?
2016. So about more than a little bit 2 years. Yeah.
2 years. So in this 2 years, what have been the greatest obstacles that you've faced?
I think there have been like kind of several. One of them is definitely trying to make people understand why sustainability in fashion is even important. Because we are every day, I mean, we wear clothes, we are consuming these products like everyday basis, and why are products priced the way they are. And I always encourage my buyers in my stores to ask me these questions, that why am I pricing it the way it is, why does it cost that much, and how much time went into making something. So it's more, I think, the story behind the product, and to kind of get that across appropriately is, I think, one of my biggest challenges, and to make that so that it's kind of understood in a good way. I think that has been my biggest challenge. And also because they're not, I think for an independent designer, where you are starting things on a scratch versus doing it for a bigger company, I think that's always, people want to know that you are genuine, your sources are genuine. So how do you kind of line that up to make somebody understand that what you're doing is authentic and where it comes from, those kind of things.
And what's been your experience growing this company out of Detroit?
So yeah, that is an interesting one, because fashion as an industry where professionals are involved, like professional designers having their own startups or labels around here, is more on a minority scale right now. But also because so many people from around the world are traveling to Detroit for work, and also because the market is definitely getting so much more better with retail. So people are looking up to such brands, and they are wanting to get the information. So there's definitely approachability is getting better. Access to sending out the information is also getting better. So I think it's more like an emerging market, if I can say so. And there's some interesting collaborations, that one can definitely work out around here, which may not be purely fashion based, but where it is a good segment between art and fashion, or architecture and fashion, which I'm kind of mostly interested in.
What are some of the brands that you feel like embody that in the city?
Like brands from the city?
Yeah. Or even, I guess not even from the city. What are brands that you really look up to that are doing what you're doing in the way that you want to do it,
I mean, there are quite a few of them. If I can say so, like I think like Eileen Fisher from New York. You know, the way their brand and you know how it kind of embodies the whole aspect of sustainability in a very subtle way, but it's kind of embedded in their supply chain, and how they keep their collections really classic. You know, not more concept driven. I think that's kind of really good because they're reaching out even to a good level of masses, like good crowd around the globe. So I think from like purely textile and quality point of view, I think Eileen Fisher has done a great job in terms of like surviving a pretty big range of market.
Yeah, yeah. What advice would you have for somebody that wants to start their own brand or clothing company?
So I would definitely like to say that it's a pretty long shot. Like it's a slow and a gradual process. So have a lot of patience, and because a lot of things are not going to work out the way you are thinking in your mind or the way you're visualizing. So and also you know have an access to people directly, and you know have people who are technically very very sound to make your things, whether it's apparels or accessories, but having a very sound technical background is very important. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of money, resources, energy, time overall. And I think have a clear vision in terms of you know what you are looking for, because there's going to be always many distractions around you. So have a really clear vision about what kind of aspires you and your brand, and hopefully kind of stick to it and grow around it.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
So let's talk about you and how you work. I mean, you have a busy life. You have a kid. You said you volunteer at a school all the time. So how do you stay efficient and productive in what you do?
So I kind of definitely multitask a lot, and sometimes that does take away from you know keeping your focus, especially for the design segment part of it. So I kind of like organize my time in terms of you know I have a plan for the week. I always kind of keep my calendar very updated, you know, try and follow things as per my priority list, things to do. And like I manage my social media accounts and everything myself. And so I'm always trying to learn, you know, through how people are doing things also. And I think being a constant learner is very important because everybody cannot know everything at one time. So always learning through my own mistakes and, you know, observing around how people are organizing their own time. Also definitely having a family, you know, that's really, really supportive. My husband takes care of a lot of things when I'm working late at night or running around during the daytime. So I think having a supportive family is really, really the key to get that extra time that you need. You know, because I mean, you're doing so many things, probably sometimes you're redoing it. You know, you're committing a lot of mistakes. You need to kind of start things all over again. So a lot of the things that you did previously might even go waste. So you need to have that buffer of time, which I'm always trying to, you know, sometimes struggle with and sometimes be on top of it.
Right, right. So I think being a part of, being a constant learner involves a lot of like failure.
Yes.
And so looking back at just the business journey, or even in your professional life, can you think of a failure that's really contributed to the way that you operate now?
Oh yeah, there are so many. I think one is that because when you're on your own, you know, you are approaching people directly. You know, you're talking to everybody in the entire line, whether it's marketing or PR or production, sales. You know, you are the voice of your company. So I think that has been like, you know, my biggest learning domain, that, you know, being more fearless. You know, you will do mistakes. You know, you will probably, you know, after you're done with a certain meeting, you will think like, oh my God, you know, I should have put across this point because it was the most important and you forgot about it. Right. You know, and sometimes even I think because of social media, one of the flip side is that everything on the face looks really good. But, you know, when you end up meeting people and talking to them, then you realize that maybe it's not really worth your time. And that has been one aspect that I have realized to, you know, a little bit be more aware about and not just take things by the face value. So I think maybe if it could be even some of the stores, you know, that have a really great presence, and then when you are there, you may not I might feel that okay, the product is not a good fit, or vice versa. So I think those things, because play a really big role in the way our lives are today. We spend so much time virtually as well, looking at people's websites and things like that. But I think it's really important to meet people in person and see what they're doing, and I think that completely changes a lot of things.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%. Yeah, and like learning how to say no to somebody.
yeah, learning how to say no, or trying to, I mean, there are a lot of times with the price points of the product, somebody wants it at a cheaper price point, and I kind of have to say that no, I don't offer discounts right now, because it is really at a starting phase, and these products have been priced really well, where they're coming from. So I do struggle with those kind of things, and also I think sometimes it's also like how somebody just makes you feel when you're having a meeting. They just don't really care about where you're coming from or the story about your product, but they just want to know the price point and just get done with it. So I think you kind of end up understand better how to choose your brand partners well.
Yeah.
So I've definitely done a lot of mistakes on that end.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking it, kind of learning from those mistakes right now.
Cool. So last question that I like to end on is, what to you makes Detroit so special?
I think what makes, there's several things. Some of them are definitely that people are really approachable. I think it's, you can definitely connect to people more organically over here, and they are very open to ideas, open to knowing where you're coming from, and I think that warmth, that approachability factor is, I think, a big plus point, especially when you are, starting your own company. You are learning so many things at the same time, and you're going to be committing so many mistakes. So having that is really, really good, and at least like sharing ideas. Many times things may not work out, but having that that kind of a village, because it takes a village for everybody. Right. So having that around you is, I think, really good in Detroit. And secondly, I think it's the mix of people, that from different backgrounds, from different cultures, from different industries, especially now. And I think that is a big plus point, because it may be somebody might be from a really different background, but if we do something collaboratively together, it might have a very interesting result. So I think even if fashion per se is a smaller percentage of people, but I think overall, like with art and architecture, interior design, there are a lot of other facets which I think are around here, and I'm definitely looking forward to collaborate with the creative community here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for people watching, for people listening, where can they connect with you?
Studio Variously is my Instagram account, and studiovariously.com is my website. And you can write to me through my website, connect to me through my Instagram account, and I'm definitely open to meeting everyone and talking with people around here.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Gibran.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching and listening, until next time, stay tuned.